Toast the holidays in a new way and raise a glass of rum chata, a delicious creamy blend of horchata with rum. Enjoy it over ice or in your coffee. Rum chata, your holiday cocktails just got sweeter. Tap or click the banner for more. Drink responsibly. Caribbean rum with real dairy cream, natural and artificial flavors. Alcohol 13.75% by volume, 27.5 proof. Copyright 2025 Agave Logo Brands, Pewaukee, Wisconsin. All rights reserved.
At Sierra, discover joyous deals on great gifts for everyone on your list. Like cozy slippers, ski gear, fishing poles, bikes, large kayaks, even larger canoes. Whew, which might lead to another discovery. Wrapping gifts is the only sport you need to stay fit this season. 'Tis the season to discover great gifts at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The Last Show with David Cooper.
As more and more people drift from organized religion, many still hold mystical beliefs. You might hear someone tell you that they're spiritual, but not religious. Well, a new study on this group of people shows that ideas like a cosmic order or a universal connectedness might even give your life meaning. I'm here with psychology professor at Brunel University of London, Dr. Aiyana Willard, who has studied this. Aiyana, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. Nice to be here.
This is such a fascinating group of people, the people that identify as spiritual but not religious. What got you interested in them in the first place?
Well, I'm very interested in cultural change and how belief systems change with culture. So that's sort of the origin of the interest in this group. But also they're a very large group, spiritual but not religious. It can depending on where you get your estimates, are up to a third of the population in most Western countries. It's a huge group of people, and it seems to be a reaction to cultural change. So how people are finding religion these days versus secular culture. It's sort of the split brings people to kind of these more alternative belief systems. So they don't want to be part of the institutions of religion. They find reasons to reject that, or they just didn't grow up and they just don't feel very supported by religion. They're not really interested in religion, but they are still interested in this kind of the general sense that there's something out there, or that there's a purpose and meaning to life, or that there are, magic is real, or that the different types of spirits exist in the world.
Now, is there ways to categorize this group? Like, I'm sort of hearing one group would be the more moving away from organized religion, but the other, like, just moving towards spirituality. Are there ways to categorize these people, or is it really just a broad definition?
It's a broad definition. And within that group, there are, 1,000 little subgroups of people who would identify as one thing or another, or not want to identify as anything at all. But broadly speaking, in contemporary society, we see a lot of people who leave religion to become spiritual. So they leave religion, but they don't want to give their beliefs up. And that's particularly true in places like the US, where most people grew up religious. But if you look at places like the UK or even Canada, there's a lot of people who were raised non-religiously, or their parents were very vaguely Christian or very vaguely religious in some sense or another, and they've drifted towards spirituality. It's become a huge part of our culture, and I don't think people really recognize it because things like yoga, karma, the concepts like manifestation are so baked into everyday language and culture now that we don't even recognize that that's a fairly recent change, and it's this push towards these kind of alternative spiritual concepts.
So what sort of questions did you ask this group of people? What sort of assumptions did you go in with in your study?
So for this study specifically, we were looking at meaning in life. And partly this is because there is a big gap between non-religious and religious people on a sense of meaning. And a sense of meaning has a really strong correlation with just well-being and your general happiness in life. So people who have a stronger sense of meaning, stronger sense of purpose tend to be happier, tend to have a better kind of sense of well-being about themselves. So we were interested in this difference, and we were interested in the fact that people who identify as not religious are not one uniform group. So we wanted to look at whether or not these spiritual people had the same gaps with religious people as the kind of atheist, non-believing, non-religious people do. people who don't believe in anything.
Heathens like me, I
Heathens
suppose.
like you. So the kind of the idea here was to split these groups because there's kind of two big theories of where this meaning come from. So one is this idea of social support. So religions offer people a lot of social support. They come with kind of a community attached to them. But there's also the beliefs of religion and the kind of more spiritual beliefs within religion. So the kind of these ideas of these transcendental ideas, that there's something bigger than oneself, that there's something more. And so we wanted to kind of split those two things. And the spiritual but not religious category lets us do that nicely because they tend to not have the same communities as religion, but they have these beliefs. And so we looked at where meaning was coming from for these different groups.
Was the assumption that meaning came from the community? Like, I don't know, for Christianity, the church, for Judaism, the synagogue, from Islam, the mosque, not the beliefs? Was the idea that meaning came from there?
Part of why we did this is because there is a big debate in kind of the study of religion, the academic study of religion about this topic. So personally, from my own research and from other stuff I've done, I assumed that a big chunk of this was also coming from beliefs. There's definitely stuff coming from community, but we should see some effective belief. And so it was a bit of a contention within the broader literature, whether or not this could be about beliefs or about community. And what we found is that it's about both, right? So the religious people in our group tended to have the highest meaning in life, followed by the spiritual but not religious, and then the non-religious. And the spiritual but not religious people were getting that from their beliefs, and the religious people were getting it from a sense of community and a sense of beliefs.
Was there a greater amount for those who are spiritual but not religious versus those who are religious and a member of a religious community?
In the sense of meaning? Or,
yes, did folks who went to synagogue every week have more meaning than those who just had the belief?
Both. So we did a study in the UK and in the US, and we found that in both groups that religious people did have more meaning than the spiritual but not religious, and that both the spiritual but not religious and religious people had more sense of meaning than the non-religious, the totally non-religious.
Were there any types of mystical or spiritual beliefs that were predictive of meaning? Maybe karma, cosmic order, feeling like there's a connectedness to the universe. Did any particular spiritual beliefs give someone more meaning?
So we didn't look at that quite so specifically in this study, but we do know that kind of these bigger, the sense of being part of something bigger, the kind of sense of cosmic order, those are generally where people find the sense of meaning. And it's not the case that non-religious people can't find this anywhere. So there's a lot of research on people finding it in science or people finding it in like the process of like intellectual discovery or these sorts of things. It's nicely packaged within religion. There's the part of religious belief is to kind of bring meaning to people.
So if mystical beliefs are linked to feeling more meaning, what's your take on people, I guess, like me, who, I would say I'm pretty fulfilled without them. Are we outliers, or in general, if we have no spiritual beliefs, we're in general going to find life to have less meaning?
So on average, you will find life to have less meaning. That doesn't necessarily speak to you specifically. You may have a great sense of meaning in your life that brings you a lot of comfort, a lot of joy. But on average, the non-religious people tend to have less meaning and tend to feel less purpose in their lives.
How would you recommend to someone who is not spiritual to pick up these beliefs? Is it like, I don't believe it's a choice, right? Like, it's hard for me to accept things without evidence. Or would you not? Would you just say...
Well, so, I think there's quite a lot of research that does suggest that people find a lot of meaning in things like science, and a lot of scientists find a lot of meaning in science. So it is that similar sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. So political movements can have this similar feelings, like the kind of putting yourself out into some group or into some belief system that you really support. It doesn't necessarily have to be religion.
And the why. Why might a mystical or spiritual belief provide life more meaning? Is it because it just makes the universe feel like it has more order? Does it relieve anxieties about, why are we here? Where are we going? What happens after we die? What's the mechanism here? Or is it not well understood?
Essentially all of those things, right? Those are essentially the mechanisms. So the kind of sense of order, the sense of like knowing what happens, but also helps people cope with good and bad things that happen in life, right? So if you believe in karma when bad things happen to you, or you can kind of justify this in a sort of a broader cosmic sense that like there's or the belief that like, some bit of suffering will lead to growth or spiritual growth can be very comforting for people and helps them cope with problems.
Aiyana, this has been a really interesting conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing details of your research with me.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Dr. Aiyana Willard is a psychology professor at Brunel University of London.
Monster Energy. Everybody knows White Monster Zero Ultra. That's the OG. It kicked off this whole zero sugar energy drink thing. But Ultra is a whole lineup now. You've got Strawberry Dreams, Blue Hawaiian, Sunrise, and Vice Guava. And they all bring the Monster Energy punch. So if you've been living in the white can, branch out. Ultra's got a flavor for every vibe. And every single one is zero sugar. Tap the banner to learn more.